Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting little night vision camera, so to speak. But before we get into the video, if you want to help out the channel, you can, of course, like, share, and subscribe because all of that sort of stuff is free and does help me out quite a bit. On top of that, go ahead and comment literally anything down below. Other than that, there's subscribe star and possibly a few Mark or Pro upper receivers on my website. Now, with all that out of the way, full disclosure, OneLeaf.ai did reach out to me to test out one of their, night vision monocular devices. Now, as most of you are probably already aware, this is not a night vision device. I believe these retail for about $200. These are basically a camera that can see in the IR spectrum. So this is basically a camera that can be mounted to a rifle scope or a monopod or a tripod or something like that, that also has a built-in IR illuminator so that it can see during the dark, because of course this camera can pick up the IR light spectrum. Now, the main reason that I'm doing this video is to sort of illuminate this sector of the market, no pun intended, and kind of show off what these things are good for and what they are absolutely not good for. So let's go ahead and get into some of the basic boring specifications. So first off, this is actually using the Sony STARVIS CMOS sensor. Now, this is a full HD 1080p sensor. However, if you don't know anything about cameras, the CMOS sensor is about as small as it's going to get, which comes with its own set of complications. Now, it also has a 0.4-inch panel with a 60 hertz refresh rate, which is quite nice. Daytime mode, if you're into that sort of thing, and of course, night vision mode, which is just, of course, the camera with an IR illuminator that can, of course, see the IR spectrum. Now, the main benefit of this unit to me is that it does have built-in HD video recording, which is nice and definitely something that I would consider using this unit for in the future as well, that it does have nighttime recording capabilities as a camera with the IR illuminator. Speaking of the IR illuminator, it does have 6 different settings. So it has anywhere from off, of course, all the way to a very high mode. I believe it's something like 6,000 milliwatts is what they claim. Now, they also claim 328 yards visual range in pure darkness in the ideal circumstances. Maybe in the ideal circumstances, but 100 to 200 yards is definitely doable in subpar circumstances as well. It's not too bad. Now, the body itself is made out of mostly plastic and aluminum, though it is rated up to 308 rifle recoil, though we tested it only on 22 long rifle, which again we'll get into in just a minute. Now, the housing itself is water resistant, not waterproof, so it is of course fine in rain and other circumstances like that, but it is not submersible. Single 18650 battery, though not all 18650 batteries will fit in here, and it does of course have an adjustable diopter and focus for whatever it is that you're looking at. Now, something very important to note about this specific unit is that this one is the 16mm version, which has a base magnification of 4x. They also make a 12mm version that has a base magnification of 1x, or something approximate to 1x magnification. So a lot of the footage that you're going to see on here, both through the scope and just handheld, is very, very zoomed in. Now, for better night vision camera, like a camera setting where you're just basically recording videos of different things going on at night, whether that's shooting, driving, or whatever it is that you want to film at night, the 1x model is probably better for that because, of course, you get a much wider field of view. You can see a lot more. However, for certain applications, the 16mm version or the 4x magnification, base magnification, is going to be a little bit more usable. Now, this one here specifically is more tailored towards nighttime hunting, basically. You clip this onto your rifle scope and you are going to be able to take shots out to 100 yards fairly easily, and we did. Now, I was using an LPVO. Probably not the best way to use it. You probably want to use something that starts at a little bit higher magnification. LPVOs, specifically the one that we were using, was the new SIG MSR 1:6, and I'll show you really quickly how this clips in. It is very, very simple. So that clips in just like that. It is, of course, completely removable. And then if you wanted to, you could just leave this rear section on your optic, and then you could just clip it on and off whenever you wanted. But we were able to take shots out to 100 yards, no problems whatsoever. Now, in this sort of configuration, this is definitely a lot more of a varmint hunting configuration. For instance, if you have problems with varmints on your property, depending on where you live, or you like to smoke yotes at night, this is probably a very, very good setup for that. And I coyote hunted at night several times, and it would have definitely been a lot easier, and we could have stayed out a lot longer having some sort of clip-on device that isn't too terribly expensive and is actually fairly usable. So let's go ahead and get into some of the setup on here. So as you'll notice on the rear diopter here of the SIG MSR 1-6, we have an adapter. Now my kit came with 3 different adapters that they set out, 48mm, 45mm, 42mm. Fairly easy to measure whatever scope that you want to put it on and then get the size up. Because as you might be able to tell, I have some black electrical tape on here that they actually send in the kit, so that, you know, if your back rear ocular section is a little bit smaller, you can then use the electrical tape to kind of wrap it up so that you have a very nice fit and it's not going to scratch up your nice aluminum optics. Now, there is a bit of finagling that goes on to make sure that your clip-on night vision device, your clip-on camera basically is of course at the proper eye relief for your scope, and then everything has to be kind of focused in between. Again, an LPVO probably isn't the best use case for it. When I did flip it all the way up to 6x magnification, it did definitely get very dark, and that's because light transmission on LPVOs, especially very cheap LPVOs at high magnification, gets worse and worse, aggressively worse. At 1x, it looks very good. You're getting the best light transmission that you're going to get. And then when you crank it all the way up to 6x, the image gets very, very dark. And that's not a fault of the camera itself. That is just how dark that this gets. So if you are starting out at a higher magnification, say a 4-24, 5-25, something in that range, with this base magnification of 4, that is probably going to be the best varmint hunting setup, you know, if that's again allowed where you are. Now, moving to the back of the unit, we of course have a very simple button layout. We have the power button, which, as you would expect, turns the unit on and off. We also have the IR mode. If you hold the IR mode, it goes into black and white. It will only go into the IR mode if it's in black and white. You cannot record nighttime color. Nighttime color doesn't look real anyways, because if you're flooding in the IR spectrum, it's not going to look good whatsoever. So the nighttime mode is limited to just black and white. Now, another feature that this comes with is a zeroable red laser, which is basically just easier to get on target quickly. So basically you would zero the laser to the unit if you had this mounted up to a tripod and you needed to look over at something else, like if you were doing basically nighttime recording or nighttime videography, something like that. And then you could very quickly get onto target and then look through your LCD screen. We also have a digital zoom feature, which does exactly as you think it would. Now, I would never really use the digital zoom if I was already looking through a rifle scope. I would basically just use the rifle scope to adjust zoom. But if you are not using it on a rifle scope, if you're just again doing like nighttime camera work, basically, you could totally use the digital zoom to get a little bit closer, though of course it does get quite a bit grainy, especially as you get into the 3-4x range. Now, we also have a very simple menu button, which will of course set up your menu in whichever way you want. You can mess through a ton of different settings, including your brightness. All the other settings are completely adjustable on the Commander night vision unit. And then you have a very simple button that starts recording, whether that's recording pictures, taking pictures at night, because of course you can also just take pictures, or whether or not you're recording video. Now, it does of course have daytime camera applications as well, although that is always going to be subpar to something a little bit nicer. And if you're looking for a daytime camera, then you could spend $300 and do a lot better on a daytime camera. Again, this for me is basically a nighttime camera. So because it's able to see the IR spectrum, if you wanted to do something in complete darkness, if you wanted to do like wildlife viewing or something, or monitor property or something like that, you could totally do that. And the 16mm version is the 4x base magnification. So if you wanted to see it extended distances, that is probably the one I would do for that. If you wanted to do more like action shooting and stuff like that and actually use it as like a video production tool, then I would probably go with the 12mm version, because that's going to be a little bit easier to use. Now, these definitely do have a kind of nifty application. Now, I wouldn't use them around night vision devices because, of course, with that very powerful IR illuminator, It is a flood illuminator, as you can probably tell, as the very, very short lens housing, but it is a very wide flood illuminator that will, again, illuminate a very wide area out to 70 or 100 yards quite well. So with that sort of thing, I wouldn't be using it with other night vision devices because it's probably going to be washing out and counteracting some of the other things that you're trying to do. But again, for videography or for filming like I was doing, stuff like that, where you're just filming at night using white lights or something like that, and you actually want to see what's going on, because again, a camera, even if you're using a white light, isn't going to be picking up everything that's going on, but a camera like this absolutely will. And again, the footage itself, when using the IR illuminator on the proper settings, this is the 4X version, so everything's a little bit more zoomed in, a little bit more cropped, of course, but it actually doesn't look too bad. Now that's a very, very small niche, and of course the other application for this is a clip-on night vision or night camera setting for your, varmint hunting needs or something else like that. Again, for those very, very niche applications, it's fun. It's a nifty thing to have if you like doing nighttime recording. So does this work as a substitute for any sort of actual night vision device? Well, no, absolutely not. That's not what this is. This is a nighttime camera. So if you think you have a use for a nighttime camera to record things going on at night, or to clip onto a rifle scope for like varmint hunting or something else like that, could be a pretty cool option. And I probably will be using this in the future in that sort of role as, again, a nighttime camera, because I'm not going to take one of my daytime cameras and remove the IR filter, pay somebody to remove the IR filter on them, and then they're kind of ruined during the daytime. And I'm definitely not going to go out and buy a new camera, brand new nice camera that has its IR filter removed. So for me, this is actually a cheaper and much more efficient way to get a similar level of performance if I ever need to be testing something out in pure darkness again. So this is something that is almost kind of designed for somebody like me. But again, if you're somebody who wants to have night vision capabilities or nighttime seeing capabilities, again, with an IR illuminator, and you want to say see out to further distance, monitor property, just view wildlife at night without disturbing anything, a little bit of nighttime photography, videography, or of course, if you want to clip it onto a rifle scope, for those very niche applications, it's a very inexpensive tool for the job, especially compared to some other options on the market. So with all that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if I should be checking out anything else like this in the comments down below. And that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace off. Blah.